It was funny that I end up talking about this because there was one commentator that talked about Luis Diaz and his performance with Liverpool and said it seems like he's been here for 5 years, yet he's only been here for about 5 minutes. And it just seems so funny because they seem so right. It just seems like he's fit in so far. The language barrier and everything that has gone on in his adaptation process, and finally he scores his first goal, and it's amazing what he was capable of doing with Liverpool, adding more depth, another option for Jurgen Klopp. And it seems like Liverpool are this team that could be on their way to contending for the Champions League if they weren't already. They're a team that is allowing the possibility of rotation now, because now Mohamed Salah doesn't have to play every single game. Mane doesn't have to play. Sadio Mane doesn't have to play every single game. Even Roberto Firmino, to a certain extent, doesn't have to play every single game. So that helps out in terms of this team being fresher. I'm not saying totally fresh, but fresher when it comes to being able to get to the trophy winning phase of the season. And I think that this is something important to really look at going into the remainder of this campaign, because just the teams, maybe not the best team is going to win something like the Champions League, which ends up being a battle of attrition if you look at it from that perspective. It ends up being one of these tournaments where there is still a lot to look at and look forward to and wonder and see what's going to happen, because today a team might be a contender, but in 2 weeks they might not, because of injuries, because of a whole boatload of issues that can end up making the difference in a season. And hopefully that ends up being a positive for Liverpool, being able to get a player such as Lucho Diaz, because what he's been able to bring, it's a promise he fulfilled. And I love the fact that he's been able to do this. Why? Because he has been yet another player that has come to England and has ended that, he needs time to adapt to a league like the Premier League, a league that is so much better than everything else. He's never experienced anything like that. It's again, when you hear these pundits talk about, the Premier League and the blank of the Premier League, the this of the Premier League, the that of the Premier League, it's sometimes nonsensical, because if you're good, you're going to adapt anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter if you're playing, or you might not adapt to somewhere in the world. So if a player doesn't adapt to from going from the Premier League to, let's say, Liga, does it make Liga a difficult place to play? Yes and no. It just players different. Different players adapt differently to different situations. That's all. But there's been this whole notion in England, especially, that just because the Premier League is the one that has the most money, that the Premier League this, that the Premier League that, and I understand, and it's there's a certain truth to that, but it doesn't mean that every single player on Earth is going to have an adaptation time, or is going to need a year to adapt. Because one of the examples I usually give when it comes to that type of argument is Kun Agüero. Because Kun, when he first got to Manchester City from Atletico Madrid, he needed time to adapt to the intensity of the Premier League. First game he comes out of the chute, scores a brace, gets an assist, and was well on his way in becoming the all-time leading goal scorer for Man City. So, what then? Again, I don't say it out of jest. I don't say it because I'm against. No, it's just that you hear that all the time, and you get to a certain point that you start thinking, do people honestly see other leagues? Do people honestly see what goes on elsewhere? And that's the question I always ask myself about certain pundits and how they talk about other leagues, or if they even see other leagues for that matter. I start to question that, because it seems as if it is. I can't say that they do or they don't, and I'm not going to get into that topic of discussion because I don't know. But to hear some of the things that people say about it, it's just wow. But anyway, I digress. It's a great time because seeing Luis Díaz play the way he has ever since he's gotten to Liverpool, it just shows you the kid's the real deal, man. And it's unfortunate that performance or that form hasn't, at least in recent months, translated over to the Colombian national team. And I strongly believe that he is the man of the future, or if not the present even now, for the Colombian national team. So when you look at this player, boy, there's a lot to be looking at. There's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot to be really excited about every time Luis Díaz starts to play that ball, have it at his feet, or even gets in front of goal. There's just another weapon to be able to make people excited about Liverpool and their football. And that really gives me a great deal of happiness, because he's a player that has worked his tail off to get where he is. And you always have to be happy when that type of thing happens to people like him.